perfectly parallel, and there's a little bit of grease here. The tubes as an entire unit, both, in theory, should slide up and down easily without having to fight with them. But because these are often out of sync, and I know this top was out of sync, an easy way to tell is I took a tape measure, which is not that accurate, but even that showed me that from the bottom of this clamp to the top of this, there was a variance between the two sides of at least 1/16 of an inch. That's considered a lot. Tilted. So when you're tightening, that's very likely to happen. The clearance for the gaiter boots is extremely tight, but pretty much it's on straight. Here, there's no crack of light, and I found the reading is 231.98, or basically 232 millimeters, or 9.133 inches. This slides perfectly. Look at this. Watch. Yep, I can actually do that with my finger. If I tap this probably even like a millimeter either way, or definitely like 2 millimeters, and it'll be binding so much you need the screwdriver in there to rotate it. So if your axle doesn't slide smoothly, make sure that it's clean and lubed and doesn't have burrs on it. Now this plate has a very close fit, and as I begin to tighten it, even by finger tight, I find it moves this out of adjustment and it binds. At the base, when I measured from the outside here to the outside here, I got 244.9.608 inches. They're looking pretty good. Basically, I found about 232 millimeters in the outside of the tubes. Giving it the tap test again, it's almost perfect, except we still have the fork that's leaning forward puts pressure on the glass, and then it will do the same diagonally. Corner where you hear the tapping and where there's a space, and slip different feeler gauges in, and then you'd be able to record exactly how big the space is. So small the space, it's not even half the thickness of a razor blade. I got the axle so it was nice and smooth, and then I locked it in with the pinch bolts, the Allen's right there, Allen bolts. That way, pretty much, the parallelness can't change very much. The brace is here, although loose. The bottom end is locked in. So that really reduces the movement of going in and out. That leaves pretty much only the other motion, which is the two tubes going forward or backwards very slightly. Then I loosen this, I use my board. I came to the conclusion if the space is very small, you don't even need the board. You can just take and hold one of these and hit the other one lightly with your hand. Check it again with the glass. It's basically going back and forth. Once the space is very tiny, it doesn't really matter. There's both front and back look the same, so you should label it when you take it apart. It'll just save trouble later. I put anti-seize on these 4 bolts because you'll be adjusting them back and forth. What the book shows you is you stick your axle in, then you put your spacer on, and you tighten it up and torque it. The axle can't come out. I got to push this in so the spacers will be tight, but the reality is when you tighten that other end, this is free to move in and out. Friends, 93 Yamaha Virago 1100, that this I could just twist it and it comes right off, even after not having been touched for 2 years. This hole, the edge of it right here, is much closer to the inside. The main thing here is you don't want this out too far or in too far. And I think because this side is not adjustable, I always thought, well, shouldn't this axle in here come flush with the surface? You'll say, oh, I need to push this in more that way. But of course, if you do that, you're going to end up in trouble. 6 7/8 of an inch is what I got. Again, that measurement was made without any washers or springs or spacers in there. Those will go in last. So as I suspected, it's not accurate. It should just drop right on, but it doesn't. I put grease in here to make it easier, and I just bumped it on with my hands a little bit, but it's stiff. Another good example of where just taking this and moving forks back and forth until they fit up in here isn't a good idea and is not going to yield the correct alignment. Maybe when we put this on it'll go on better, but I don't think so. Again, I'm going to take this off, take my vernier caliper, and measure the 2 tubes to see if they kept their measurement. Okay, here's our measurement. We lost about 1.6 millimeters in width. Right now we're at 230.61, and before we were at about 232. So we lost about, so that's about the space right there. That's about 1.6 millimeters, right? Now this is really the way you're supposed to put. The quick way to check alignment is the axial test. If you pass that, you don't need to do this. If you fail, then what you want to do is take your fork springs, let them pop up by removing the caps, drop your forks down, and work on the alignment. Time to push the caps down and put your chamfer clip in. And you hear a click. And from off center a little bit, pretty much, fall. Anything you can do it to, like a hiss of air. Pull it out pretty easily and reinserting very easy. Put anti-seize on the brake line. Then these two washers sandwich the fender. Is that they have these ends, which means you can put all the washers and stuff in place, then you're just going to come down, like that, and this thing right here, and that's because there's a big cap here that the front doesn't have. Shield that goes like that, and then shields the brake line. Okay, so this is what your washers look like now. Make sure to put this front part of the fender where the brake line is down first, then fit the rest of your fender together, and then begin tightening all the nuts and bolts. I used this tungsten carbide bit for the Dremel to enlarge the holes. That way it allowed the brace to move to a place where the forks were in proper alignment. The proper alignment of the forks dictates where they need to be, not any particular holes or the brace itself. See that up on top because it's a deeper. Now here the threads go. Doing this test will show you kind of without springs really how light the front end is on the K. We take our Allen wrenches and tighten this bracket, which is still loose. That I tightened this side and left this side and the back diagonally. See, that's loose and that back corner is loose. What I found is that pretty much got rid of my stiction problem. That tells me here that this is warped. Two options. I could slip a shim in here, but the space is so tiny, about all I could probably use is aluminum foil. Access that back Allen bolt with this small ratchet. I'm also able to get it in here. Fork gaiters are really tough to work with, so use some baby powder in your fingers and lube the bottom of the fork with fork oil. Okay, here's a follow-up from our first ride. I ended up using 280 cc's of 5-weight fork oil, and I cut 1 inch off the spacer to get the proper sag, and the banging now is completely gone over bumps. Thanks for watching the video.